In 2005, most NASCAR fans believed they were witnessing the final win of Mark Martin's career at Kansas. Fortunately, Mark would come back for the 2006 season, but would go winless that year. Many believed they had seen his final opportunity to win come and go. That is until a flash of hope would happen early in the 2007 season.
White flag, 1 lap to go.
Front four, single foul. Here they go. They got to go. They got to get Mark moved. They got to move him somehow.
He gets back to that yellow line right around the bottom, all the way through turn 1 and 2.
Mark Martin is driving the race of his life, and there's nobody that's better at holding people off at Daytona.
And Kyle Busch lagged back a little bit. Is he going to get help? Is he going to come? He's looking.
Back behind you.
He almost squeezed Harvick into the wall, and here comes Harvick, the 29, with Matt Kenseth.
Oh, Mark got loose. Mark got loose.
And Harvick's getting a run off turn 4. It's going to be a drag race all the way back to the start-finish line. No caution. They're side by side, right to the line. Big crash. Here they come. Checkered flag. Harvick.
My 8-year-old holy ears had never heard the F-bomb drop more than they did on that night. My father, who was a massive Mark Martin fan, was reasonably upset, as this was the closest Mark would ever get to winning the Daytona 500. What's even more of a bummer is the fact that this was a part-time opportunity and very well could have been Mark's final win if he decided to hang it up after he had won this race. Mark Martin would go on to have a pretty dominant start to the 2007 season. In the first 5 races, he would net 4 top 5s and 5 top 10s in all 5 of those races. Mark would only run 24 races that year and then switch over to Dale Earnhardt Incorporated's number 8 the following season for another part-time gig. He would go on to have 11 top 5s in 2008, but then the best thing that can happen to Mark at this point in his career happened. For the 2009 season, Mark Martin would take over the 5 and drive for Rick Hendrick. At first, the season seemed like it was going to be a struggle, as throughout the first 4 races, he would have 3 finishes of 31st or worse. It looked like the 50-year-old was going to have a terrible year, but then he rattled off 3 consecutive top 10 finishes and would head to Phoenix on a hot streak. He would qualify on the pole and have the best car for the entire race, leading 156 laps and going on to break his winless streak and capture his first win of the 2009 season. Now, like most of us who were Mark Martin fans or just fans in general, you were happy to see him back in victory lane, as you had a feeling that this was a special win because it could very well be his last win. Well, Mark would follow up this win with another a few races later at the Lady in Black. Mark would go on to capture his 2nd win of the season and his 2nd Southern 500. Okay, so now at this point, you were probably like me at the time and saying, wow, he's got some real juice left to win in dominant fashion at Phoenix and now win again at one of NASCAR's most challenging racetracks. Especially at his age, these were 2 remarkable accomplishments. You still appreciated the 2nd win because once again you knew he was getting up there in age and a final win could have possibly just occurred. But he wouldn't stop there. He would go on to win not 3, not 4, but 5 wins on the 2009 campaign. Mark Martin would have to wait a few races to win again, this time in a dramatic fuel mileage victory where he would outlast teammate Jimmy Johnson and Greg Biffle. Mark would lead only 1 lap, but it was the only lap that mattered, and he would take the checkered flag for his 3rd win of the 2009 season. This win would begin to spark speculation that Mark Martin at 50 years old could possibly be a championship favorite halfway through the season. Mark would back up the claims of that with his next win. He would dominate at Chicagoland and lead 195 laps and cement his case for why he was a championship favorite. On top of winning races throughout the summer of 2009, Mark Martin would also have strong runs, finishing 2nd twice, once at the Brickyard and the other at Bristol in the night race, where he led 240 laps. If Mark was more aggressive, he probably would have won both of those races, but Mark Martin always raced like a gentleman and gave respect to his fellow competitors. Moving into the chase, Mark Martin had a lot of momentum and would come out firing on all cylinders the first race of the 2009 chase. He would go on to win at New Hampshire and then follow that performance up with a 2nd at Dover, a 7th at Kansas, and a 4th at California. He was just putting together finishes and keeping pace with fellow teammate Jimmy Johnson, and many fans believed that this was it for Mark. The elusive championship was finally going to happen in this magical year, right? Well, a poor performance at Charlotte, followed by Jimmy Johnson literally winning 4 races in the chase, and then not finishing outside of the top 10 in 9 out of 10 of the races, would make it a little more difficult for Mark to win. But surely he can keep it up, right?
Oh, here goes Kurt Busch around. Oh,
Crash behind you. Crash.
Oh, Mark's upside down.
Mark Martin is over on his roof.
Back on his wheel.
Into the wall. Casey Mears, Rudiman is there, Reagan is there.
This was the ultimate nail in the coffin, in my opinion. Mark had an opportunity for a top 10 finish at Talladega and would crash out of the race coming to the white flag, DNFing and finishing 28th, only scoring 84 points. It's not that Mark did anything wrong during this chase run after his hot start, it's just the guy that he was competing against was one of the greatest of all time, and once again Mark Martin would fall short in his quest for a championship. At the time, I was a Mark Martin fan and I was upset, but looking back on it now, it was magical to witness a season like this with a driver that had nothing left to prove but wanted to still win just one more time. And he would go on to do that very thing, but 5 more times. I will vividly remember what I was doing or which room of my house I was in each time I watched him win that season, and that's why it was so special. It was a season that started out like nothing would happen, and then everything that could happen and make you excited as a fan of a driver happened. This would be the last season where we would see Mark Martin in victory lane in the Cup Series. Mark would go on to be inducted into the Hall of Fame after an extraordinary career. So now I ask you, were you old enough to remember and experience this magical season Mark Martin had? Or if this is your first time learning about this, what are your thoughts? It's pretty neat to think that a 50-year-old was still kicking ass at the highest level of NASCAR. I thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.